Today is just kind of a random vlog. I've had this on my mind for a while now. I've seen other vlogs and people posting things on Twitter and Facebook, which have kind of given me cause to think about this more than usual. And it's a topic that I've toyed with, talking about from time to time. I don't have any particular outline as to my thoughts. This will just be kind of a rambling waffle, I suppose, where I'm just going to kind of delve into this subject matter. But I want to talk about the hype or anti-hype or the enthusiasm, excitement that we have for upcoming games. Some buy into it, some don't. Some think that, I don't let hype affect me at all, and I don't think they're being honest with themselves. I mean, if you've ever watched a restaurant commercial and had your mouth watering at something that you've seen, you've bought into the hype. I've worked in advertising for years as an illustrator, doing photo retouching and illustrations, and it's always about showing your product in its best light. That's what it's all about. The same with gaming. E3 and a lot of these big shows are all about showing the best sides of a game, showing it in its best light. Naturally, they want the sales, whether it's EA, pushing a new Battlefield hardline, or if it's a smaller, title that people are trying to come up with the advertising money to try to push their product. I mean, there's so many games that have been hyped, and some of them have perhaps been overhyped. That's kind of what this whole rant's all about. I mean, I bought into so many games, for years because of hype. But before the internet, I didn't really see a lot of hype. I mean, I went to the movies to see Land of the Dead by George Romero, and they actually showed a commercial at the theater for this upcoming Land of the Dead Road to Fiddler's Green game. And that was the only hype I saw. I never saw anything on TV about it. I didn't read gaming magazines. I certainly wasn't on the internet at the time. And I went out and bought an original Xbox, what I call the Xbox One, just to play this game, and bought this was my first game. And I liked it. I didn't know whether the game would be well received or ill received. I honestly didn't know. I mean, now you can look at it on the internet, that game is, horrible. It has the worst Metacritic score. Well, I didn't know that. To me, I played it, and I never had no input as to whether it was good or bad, or people loved it or hated it. I thought it was fantastic because it closely resembled the vision of George Romero and the slow-moving zombies, and it's a great FPS game. It still, to me, personally, holds up well today, is kind of rudimentary as the graphics are in it. But this and many other games were games that I bought, like Manhunt or Manhunt 2 or anything else, that I bought without seeing it. Now, right now we're seeing all the hype for the new Far Cry 4, and I saw plenty of hype for Far Cry 3, of the old E3, a few years ago, and I think it was, 2012 or whatever it was, and it lived up to the hype. The game really is exciting. In fact, I'm anxious to continue playing this before the new Far Cry 4 comes out, and it looks, if it's even half as good as this, I'm sure it'll be great. Everything I've seen so far at the new latest E3 on the gameplay, and they showed a little bit of a trailer or whatever, it looks great. It looks fantastic. It looks like it's going to be more of the same in a new setting, and that's great. Some people won't buy into the hype. I'll wait till it hits $20, and I'll think about it then. Well, everyone has their own criteria as to what they want to spend. And there's people that value or devalue games based on what they think it's worth. Well, I won't wait. I'm not going to pay $60 for that game. Is, if you're paying more than $15 for it, you're paying too much. And these are people that are indifferent with life. Nothing impresses them. They're perhaps jaded gamers or just bored with life in general. I don't allow myself to get all excited like you. Well, maybe you're not passionate about games. Maybe you're not an enthusiastic gamer. Maybe games no longer excite you. Maybe you should get into something else, perhaps. Skydiving, or, racing a powerboat, or something like that, if that is more exciting for you. But to me, I love games. And I will gladly, be influenced by the hype monster in the way of games and previews and trailers and all that. Although with reviews, I tend to look at them skeptically. I always want to see reviews, good or bad, but I know it's people's personal interpretation of what they like about a game. I mean, I saw a lot of hype about Dishonored and stuff from the older, I think it was 2012 E3, and it looked great. I said, man, this looks like a fantastic stealth game. And I went out and pre-ordered it and got the special edition with the tarot cards and the whole deal, which I have up on my shelf now. And I enjoyed everyone's review on this game. I never played past the first level in this game. I'm embarrassed to say it. My friends are shocked. And it looks like a great game. I have no reason not to play it. The DLC even looks good. I've watched gameplay of the DLC as well. But there was so much hype. I even have the background theme on my old Xbox 360 that I had of the Dishonored game because it looked so cool. I thought it was such an epic stealth game. I just never got around to playing it. There were so many games that were coming out at the time, and instead, around the time this came out, I spent all my time. I only got past the first level in this, but instead I spent all my time playing Kane and Lynch Dog Days, Kane and Lynch 2, and played this all the way through nonstop over a couple evenings. I couldn't stop playing it. So to me, does that make this a better game or a more fun game than Dishonored? No. It's just that sometimes things perhaps are overhyped to the point where you've seen so much, you've gluttonized on so much previews and footage and reviews and trailers. And then what happened is that, week one went by and everyone had already finished the game by them, and then more reviews are pouring in. Oh God, it's so cool, so wonderful, what an epic game. It's such a great art direction, steampunk, the whole deal. And that's great, but what happened is that it almost becomes, if I don't jump on the bandwagon right away and play it and ride that wave of enthusiasm, it's almost like it's played out. Then all of a sudden, now I'm the last person in the room to play Dishonored, and it's like, I'll play Hitman Absolution or Kane and Lynch Dog Days or something else instead. And I think Forza Horizon came out around this time, and 007 Legends and other games. So I just got sidetracked, and I had every intention, I still do, of going back and playing this. It was almost overhyped. And I bought into the hype and all of that. That's why I pre-ordered it, but I just never played it. And I feel guilty about it now, naturally. Another good example was the BioShock Infinite. I pre-ordered this. I had never played the original BioShock. I had never played it. And I went out and bought this, recently, or in the last year or so, I guess. The BioShock 1 and 2, and I still haven't even played those yet. Everyone's raved about what masterpieces they are. So it's like I know that I'll enjoy it. I love the art direction. I love the theme of it. I just haven't got around to allocating a non-stop space and time to where I can play it all the way through without interruption to get the full immersion out of it. But BioShock, I ordered the special edition, not the pandemic statue with the big giant eagle bird, but I bought the other one that came with all the little bits and pieces. And I've got a wonderful, art book strategy guide deal that came with it, The Art of BioShock Infinite. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff that came with this game, but this game, I had only got about halfway through it. I got to the point where you find Elizabeth and you do your first mission with her, and it just was weird. I don't know. I love the lighting and the art design and the graphics. You can see it's a masterfully done, fascinating story. Wonderful theme and feeling of this being up in the city in the clouds, the exploration, finding all the audio logs. I loved it. But it just lost interest. Something about the strange vigors, and I just was almost overwhelmed and became immobilized with indecision because I wasn't sure, okay, should I use the vigors on this? And so I kept referring to the strategy guide. It almost became work to try to get through it, to find all the collectibles and to master the game like I thought that I needed to. So sadly, I never finished BioShock Infinite, and I need to get back to this. And I've heard that the DLC for this is fantastic as well, and gives even more background into the story and all that. So you know what I did instead? I picked up and bought Army of Two Devils Cartel and played this all the way through nonstop and loved it. And then went back through and tried to get some achievements on some of the levels. And does that mean again that this is a better game than this, or that I like this better than this? No, not really. I think that for me, almost too much hype tends to dilute a game, or you become numb to it, to where it's almost like sensory overload. And I think that, again, when this came out, there were other games I was still trying to get through, and I didn't jump on this right away fast. And usually if I get on a game right away and play it through in a few nights or 3 or 4 nights, I find that I enjoy it more. If I wait too long and now everyone else has beaten me to the punch, they've already played it, and I've seen all the tweets and the Facebook posts and the pictures, on how great it is and the story and all. I feel like I'm left behind, and then I'm in, frankly, no hurry to finish it. So this is a dynamic that happens with games with me. Because part of it's an ADD thing. I'm just all over the Mac. I like the smorgasbord of games. I like to put in Forza Horizon and play it for an hour and a half, and then jump on to Burnout Paradise and play that, and then jump into a Battlefield 3 and continue the campaign where I left off. I mean, I'm kind of all over the map that way. A game I really like Sniper Elite 3 recently, or the Wolfenstein: The New Order. Those are ones that I quickly put in and played them pretty much all the way through. I still have a couple levels left on Wolfenstein I'm still working on. In fact, I was debating whether to show some game, me perhaps on the couch playing some of that game or something while I'm still playing near the end of it. But I played enough of it, and I had seen 2 complete playthroughs of it to where I felt like I could review the game. Sniper Elite 3 is another one. I love that. Played that game. I'm on the last level now, and I still want to play the Hitler DLC, and I may even do a gameplay of me playing just the DLC for that, just to show a little bit of gameplay and some of those killer death cam shots and all that. But game hype, it's like a double-edged sword. I mean, we saw a tremendous amount of hype for years about Duke Nukem Forever, and I've got the little statue here. Oh, it's over on my other bookcase, but I bought the Balls of Steel edition with all the little extras. Plus, I got the hardbound strategy guide. So, I mean, I invested like $130 in Duke Nukem Forever. I spent a lot of money on it because this is one of my favorite franchises, along with Wolfenstein. And I wanted to see this game get made. And I felt bad. For years, I followed screenshots and early gameplay. And at this point, I didn't care. And I saw Randy Pitchford was like promoting the game and talking about how he wanted to preserve a franchise he loved. And there was a lot of hype in commercials and previews and trailers that I saw in this game that got me really worked up and excited. Now, to me, I wasn't let down with the game. I'm one of the handful of people that actually loves the game and appreciates it for what they were going after. I think it works fine. I think that with the political correct, sensitive world that we live in, that Duke Nukem is a little bit out of place and out of date. I think now if they made a new Duke Nukem game, they might want to go for something that's more of a more of like a Max Payne 3, where he's kind of overweight, tired, old, down on his luck, and that would be probably a better direction. And this was a fantastic game. Now, this game did live up to the hype, in my opinion. I loved this Max Payne 3 and bought the special collector's edition of this as well, and loved this game. I never played the multiplayer. I didn't care to. I just loved the campaign. I'm a huge Max Payne fan as well, and I love what they did with this character. Perhaps Randy Pitchford and Gearbox could have learned from that, with Duke Nukem Forever and, Aliens Colonial Marines that came out afterwards. Both of these games, in my opinion, were probably overhyped, and they showed them in their best light, especially Aliens Colonial Marines. So they were setting people up with these super high expectations, and I saw lots of trailers and previews showing Randy Pitchford and showing these serious looks of, here's my team, here's my head animator, here's my head art design. He's showing each person that's working on this and how seriously they're taking the franchise. This will be the greatest Aliens experience ever. So we all bought into the hype, and I went out and bought the special edition of this with the little statues. I spent top dollar, $130 or more for this. In fact, even more, $150, because I bought the special edition plus the strategy guide. Plus, I bought a friend another brand new $60 copy. So I've invested a lot of money in Aliens Colonial Marines, and I also bought the DLC, the Stasis Interrupted, as well, which I've got on my hard drive now. Now, I personally like this game, but I knew that I was kind of cautiously optimistic. I saw all the hype and trailers, and it did look really good. But when I started playing it, I knew it had a troubled development. Multiple studios had worked on it. It had been in development way too long, like Duke Nukem Forever. So I learned from Duke Nukem Forever and Gearbox. I said, well, we'll see. And so to me, because I had a tempered expectations towards it, it didn't disappoint me. I had a great time with it. I think the sound design, being in that alien universe with a plasma rifle and the sound of it, all the authentic 20th Century Fox sound effects, sound design, seeing Hicks shotgun interacting with some of the scenes and people and set piece moments that you knew from the Aliens universe or the Aliens film, to me worked, and I had a great time with this. And I've watched playthroughs of this. I've watched playthroughs of the DLC for it, which in some ways actually wraps up the story. It makes a lot more sense than the story in this one, when it first came out. But I see this for what it is. So some games can be overhyped, and I validate people's disappointments with them, even though I technically feel that I'm able to see through some of that and see the games for what they are and appreciate them for what they are. Yeah, it'd be nice if they had you fighting more aliens versus, the actual colonial marines throughout a lot of the levels. True. Sure, they could have had some better animations with the aliens coming at you, stuff like that. Sure. I mean, there's lots of improvements they could have made, but I still had a good time. I put down my expectations at the door, and I entered into it with an open mind, and I enjoyed it. So, but that's me. Games like Call of Juarez, The Cartel. I knew it was going to take place in a modern times. I didn't have the expectation that I was going back to the Old West. And there's scenes in here where they return to the Old West, Old Western style shootouts and Old Western style towns, but it's a newer theme. Maybe they should have called it something else. Maybe they should have called it the Cartel Wars or something else and left the Call of Juarez name out of it. But for whatever reason, maybe it's just misnamed, but it still is one of my top 10 favorite FPS games of all time. I love this game, and it has some very innovative features. You can play as one of 3 different characters, each one with their own attributes and weapon style. And there's some great multiplayer elements for those that wanted to play multiplayer. Some of them really enjoyed the multiplayer co-op, and I have played this in co-op and enjoyed it. But it's a fun game. I liked it. Doesn't mean I'm going to push it on anybody else. Political correctness also kind of took this game down too, as a lot of people were offended by it. But I personally loved it and thought it was a great game. The Walking Dead Survival Instinct, I brought this up in a couple different rants. I liked this game. I had no expectations of it being, just like the TV show. I know it's not as popular as the Telltale Games episodic, episodes where you can, make moral choices along the way. But I thought it was a great zombie game. It scared the hell out of me, much like Land of the Dead, Road to Fiddler's Green. Very simplistic, kind of rudimentary. Yeah, I could have had plenty of room for improvements, but it still was a successful game and one of my favorite games from this generation of consoles, believe it or not. I've taken a lot of flack for that, too. The Bureau, XCOM Declassified, barely any hype for this game at all. I don't think I saw a whole lot on this. And I had been following early screenshots when it was going to first be an FPS game. And it went through some trouble development, and sure as hell, 2K Marin went right out of business shortly after this was released, so I'm not surprised. But I found it to be one of the finest squad-based tactical shooters I've ever played. I have, got friends of mine recently that got it off from Steam for peanuts, for what you could buy lunch for, and loved it. And that's another thing. Is a game any better because you only paid $10 for it or $12 versus $60 or whatever? I don't think so, personally. I think that, like Hemingway said, one of my favorite quotes from him is that pheasant hunting is worth whatever price you have to pay for it. If it's something you're passionate about and you love, then it's worth $60 or $100 or whatever you have to pay. I mean, Land of the Dead, Road to Fiddler's Green, where the hell is it? Well, over here. I mean, this is going for $80 and up on eBay for a mint copy. I found this mint copy for $20 and was thankful. But why is it so valuable if it's so hated, which I find is interesting. But I love this game. Even with no hype, and I was sad to see so many jaded reviewers just pan the game and dismiss it quickly without seeing its finer attributes and its uniqueness, because it is a unique game. It's not for everyone. I tend to hype a lot of underprivileged games that I tend to champion games that get put down, a lot of them, or that could be considered mediocre by many gamers and game reviewers and game journalists. But I look for the fun in them, and I find it. Sometimes it's just the theme. Sometimes it's just the art direction or style or the immersion that you feel. But that's all part of it. The Last of Us. This is another one that was ridiculously hyped when it came out. I mean, right over here, over 200 Game of the Year awards right here. I mean, this game, I got the Steel Case edition, I got the special Dark Horse, art book that came with it, and the strategy guide. I got I got the Survival edition, or whatever the hell it's called, came with a nice art book. And I started to play it. I got about 90 minutes into it, and I loved it. But again, it was so ridiculously overhyped, and I was at the time was working a lot of hours. I had very little energy to come home and play this game, and I didn't want to put it in for 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 45 minutes and then shut it off and come back. This is something you know you want to savor undisturbed one day from the next until it's done, so you can say, wow, it's like a movie. No one wants to go to the theater and then after 20 minutes get up and go to the bathroom and miss part of it and come back. Okay, now where was I? And so that's how I am with really big games like this. LA Noire was another one. Both games I picked up brand new, pre-ordered, and I had all the 5 DLC packs for this as well, but I waited over a year before playing it because I wanted to play it undisturbed. And there was a tremendous amount of hype behind this game, and to me it lived up to the hype. There were a few jaded reviews on it, people nitpicking it. Oh, it wasn't enough to do in the open world like GTA 4 and all that. But I thought it was a masterful game, and when I finally sat down and allocated the time to playing this, this is stood up as one of the top 10 most immersive games I've ever played. It's a wonderful, magical game. I hope to God Rockstar will consider doing some kind of a sequel, whether it's in this time period or another one, because I like the concept of the game, and I felt like going back in a time machine, kind of like Mafia 2 was. I love this experience. Rockstar seldom disappoints. Rockstar is one of those few studios that lives up to the hype, but they spend years polishing their games. And even this one was rushed, and people were putting in 15-hour days trying to knock it out and weren't getting paid. There were a lot of problems, and that Bondi Studios, I think, has had trouble because of that. But, this Last of Us, and they got this Metro redo, which is coming out the end of this month, which I'm excited. I've got that pre-ordered and paid off like I did this. That's another one which I had for my Xbox 360. Along with Metro 2033, but I've heard they're going to be remastered, better graphics and all this. So I'm anxious to experience both of those. I only got about 5 levels into Metro Last Light, and I loved it. It's not because I didn't like it, that's why I stopped. I was overwhelmed with games. My time is so valuable. It's rare if I can even get through a whole game sometimes. I try to experiment, have a smorgasbord, and try a little bit of everything. And then playing my old retro games as well. So I'm kind of all over the map with the games. But I'm really enjoying this. Been recording footage, so I'm might either do some gameplay of this and show it at some point, or maybe a review down the road. Although there's so many reviews of it already, which are wonderful reviews. I don't know that I could add too much more to what's already been said about this, but I'm enjoying my experience at 60 frames a second, and with the 1080p graphics for someone like me, who's just an average console gamer who doesn't know jack shit about PCs and how to build a killer PC that can run at high settings and all that. I got my money's worth. It's not even $60. I think I paid $50 or whatever it is, but I love this, and I love this new trend. So when I hear people calling it Fraud Edition and all this, whether it's this or Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, calling this Fraud Edition too, I don't know if they're just being sensationalists, trying to get views by capitalize and being so hip to put down wonderful games like this, or what. I don't know if it's for views, or they're just for shock value, or maybe because they're incapable of seeing that people could be excited. I've got 2 friends that never had a PS3, and right now they've got a PS4 for whatever reason, and they're digging the hell out of this. It was worth it for those 2 people alone, and anyone else that never experienced a game, or for those that love the game on the PS3 and want to play it with even more better graphics. Who cares? It's worth whatever it costs. Whether it's $20 or $120, if you're having a good time with it, it's worth what it costs. I don't like seeing people value games. I wouldn't pay more than $15 for that game, and you shouldn't either. I don't like people that do that. That irritates the piss out of me when I hear people doing that. Because they're missing out on great experiences. Just because you're so jaded that you devalue games to such an extent that they're not worth more than $5 or $15 for you, maybe it's worth more to someone else. Now, I'm in a fortunate position where I can buy some, not all, but some new games. I couldn't afford to buy an Xbox One and a PS4 at launch. I had to pick and choose. I bought the PS4. It was a better console. In my opinion, it still is. And I'm glad that I bought it. And I'm glad I bought it in the midnight launch. I don't care if it didn't have that many exclusives that I was interested in. There was a lot of hype about the new infamous Second Son game for the PlayStation 4. And the graphics do look good. But after some people paid full price for it, they said, well, it was kind of overhyped. very repetitive. They didn't really offer anything new compared to Second Son 2 and the first one. So they thought that they got kind of gypped and felt like, if I could go back and do it again, I probably wouldn't buy that. That's the chance you take. The Watch Dogs game, which I had no interest in from the get-go, but I did watch all the early E3 stuff. It looked interesting. It just wasn't my cup of tea with that heavy hacking type stuff. I hate hacking in games. I just can't stand it. I mean, whether it's a simple mechanic or something more complex, I'm not real thrilled about it, but it's part of games today. A game built all around that. With every traffic light, I got to hack and try to hack into people's cars and every little thing. It was just too much. Not my idea of a fun open world game, but I can see that I have had multiple friends of mine that are having a blast with it. Whether the graphics are a little stale or mediocre or not, it looks like an average, kind of a clone of GTA. To me personally, I would much rather play something like GTA 5, but that game was hyped to death. And I feel, in my opinion, a lot of people feel let down, didn't live up to the hype. The graphics weren't the state-of-the-art graphics that they were promised, kind of like Aliens Colonial Marines, or whatever. But some games can be overhyped. I think that that the gaming companies have got to think about this beforehand and really decide up front whether they should overhype a game. You better be careful that you live up to the promises as much as possible. It's nothing wrong with showing a game in its best light, but don't false advertise it. Don't show one thing. Okay, we're going to show you this, but here's what you're really getting. And I think that's something that I don't like to see with new games. It frustrates me. It frustrates a lot of you as well. I have a lot of friends. They'd say, well, yeah, I'd like to get the new Wolfenstein, the New Order, but I'm not going to pay $60 for that. It doesn't even have multiplayer. I'll wait till it's $20. Well, that's fine. You want to wait a year or whatever, and you'll find this. Eventually, this will be $20, perhaps less, and that's great. And not all of us can afford every new game that comes out. This was a game that I wanted to get my PS4 just to play, so I would pay if I had to. I had no other way to pay it, and I had to pay $500 to experience this game. $500. Or I could never experience this game. Believe it or not, I would find a way to come up with the money to pay it. But that's me. Doesn't mean I'm made of money. I still have to pick and choose. I can only buy maybe a third of all the new games that come out. Right now, I've got pre-orders. I've got, I just, picked up The Last of Us. I got the Metro Redo. I have the new GTA 5 pre-ordered. I've got Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 2 pre-ordered when it does come out for the Xbox 360. I've got Forza Horizon 2. For the Xbox 360 port that doesn't have the drivatars, which I have no interest in. I have that pre-ordered. I have Battlefield Hardline pre-ordered, which has now been pushed back, sadly. And I've got Alien Isolation pre-ordered. So I've got a handful of them. The Middle-earth Shadows of Mordor looks good. That one I'm considering. There's a lot of hype around that game too, but I'm waiting. I'm going to wait and watch a few more previews. I just want to make sure it's not a heavy hack and slash game. I love the Lord of the Rings feel and vibe. I feel I've done an authentic job with it, but I want to give it a little bit more time. So I don't fall into the hype to the degree where I say, I got to have that immediately, race down and pre-order it. But I tend to, watch my friends' reactions on it. I tend to look for, articles and previews of people that have actually played the game or had done a little bit of a demo on the game and kind of get a feel for, there's a good chance. It's a calculated risk. But I find that 85% of the time I make good decisions. And I take the time, I'm careful with my pre-orders. And Hitman Absolution, Far Cry 3 were great games I pre-ordered. 007 Legends, the very first Forza Horizon. Those are all great games I picked for 2012. I mean, I'm happy with, and the Doom BFG edition was another one. All of those games are fantastic. It was worth every penny I paid. There's a few games that you'll buy and pre-order that you're not enamored with, but some of them I might be. Some of them I just haven't played, like Dishonored, or like I haven't finished the second half of BioShock Infinite, which I will do. I will get to that, and I'll have a great time, and I'll probably, play all the DLC as well. Time is valuable. I have to pick and choose with the new games I want, and it's easy to fall into the hype. There were a lot of hype, around the new Tomb Raider. And this I played the first level of just to see it, because it was one of my favorite games of 2013. I loved it. Got a high achievement score. Found every collectible in the game. Loved the gameplay. I thought it was polished as hell. My mouth was hanging open at 60 frames a second with 1080p graphics on this. Very impressive. I love this. I'm saving this when I have the time. It may be a year and a half from now, but I will sit down and play this all the way through. Is it overhyped? I think it's worth every penny in my opinion, but that's me. Someone else will, I already played it on the Xbox 360. Why would I pay, full price to pay it again? Hey, if you don't want to pay it, that's okay. But don't put those down that are excited for it, that are maybe passionate about playing. Either they never played it and they want to play it on a better system, or they can't afford a PC and this is the best graphics that they're going to get on a PS4, Xbox One, or whatever. Let them play it. Let them enjoy it. Don't throw a wet blanket over their passion for something. GTA 5, I went to the midnight launch. Why? Why would I do that? Why did I sit up for 5 hours standing, wishing I had brought a chair for the midnight launch for this? Because I was dying to play. It's one of my favorite franchises. I went home, I was too tired to play it. I only played the beginning of it, showed an impressions video, and I had to sleep half the next day to save the energy up to even get into it the next night. And I have over 100 hours in this. This lives up to the hype. And you better believe I'm going to get the PS4 definitive edition of this. And I don't want to hear anyone call it a fraud edition either, because to me, you'll get your money's worth. This game is worth, just like the Wolfenstein: The New Order, I would pay $500 if I had no other way to play and experience the story mode alone in this. I don't care about the multiplayer. I love the story. I love the side missions. I love hunting for all the collectibles in this. I had a blast with this. This game to me wasn't overhyped, but that's just my opinion. I loved it. It exceeded my expectations. So I get cautiously nervous. There are many games that aren't hyped, like Wolfenstein, or from 2009 is a good example. Barely any commercials on this, and of course I had been following screenshots, and I was just getting on the internet at the time, so I jumped on this and bought my Xbox 360 Elite just to play this. This didn't disappoint. I played this a couple times through and loved this game. A wonderful experience, and that's why I was excited to try the new Wolfenstein: The New Order because of it. Singularity, also by Raven Software and Activision, had zero, no buzz at all about it. And I tripped over this like a year after it had been out. I'm like, what the hell is Singularity? Oh yeah, I remember seeing like a Game Informer or something a long time ago that had some article about part of it, and I barely remembered. It had like zero hype. This is a real underrated gem that I'd highly recommend. I still want to do, now that I got my screen capture device, I should do a review of this because it's such a wonderful game. I love this game. And there's no hype at all. Sometimes maybe these are almost more magical because there's no hype. The hype can almost overinflate a balloon and kind of take the wind out of your sails for the enthusiasm. It's so overhyped, and anytime anything becomes overly popular, I'll tend to run the other way. And I've done that with movies. Everyone's like, oh, we saw Dances with Wolves, you've got to go see it. I heard it from everybody. My karate teacher, my parents, my friends. Everyone was just into that movie. And it's like, fine, all right, I guess I better go see it, And I was kind of disappointed, to be honest with you, because it was overhyped. It just wasn't my particular theme. But I did enjoy it. I validate that it's a great and polished film. I've watched it twice now and enjoyed it both times. Forrest Gump was another one. I had never seen it for years. I had a friend of mine that was shocked. He said, we got to go to a Blockbuster right now and get that. You've got to see it. I go, all right, let's go see it, even though everyone's raved about it to death. And I liked it. I don't particularly care for it. It wasn't my idea of a film. It's very clever and it's interesting. I prefer more of a Woody Allen type sense of humor or whatever, but it's a great film. People love it. I don't take anything away from it. That film was hyped to death, like a lot of movies are. And it's the same thing with games. Rage had some hype. Rage I had followed for years. Whether it had any commercials or not, I still wanted the game. I liked the previews I saw. I liked they had a whole series of like a dozen or more trailers that id Software put out for this game. This game, to me, lived up to the hype. I'm sorry for the PC users that had texture pop-in issues and stuff. I feel bad for anyone that couldn't enjoy the game the way it was intended and designed to be fun and immersive. Apparently it's had some issues, but on my Xbox 360, with it installed in the hard drive, it plays and works fine. I love this game as one of my top 10 games of all time. I love Rage, but a lot of people, yeah, whatever, I'll wait till it's $15. Well, that's fine. If you don't value something like this, or they'll say, oh, well, this is just a rip-off of Borderlands, even though this was in development first before Borderlands. I had Borderlands and a brand new strategy guide when it first came out. I didn't like it. I didn't like the XP pouring, the numbers pouring out of every hit. I didn't like the obsessive, over-the-top looting of everything everywhere. To me, it took me out of the immersion, even though I liked the art style of it. And after one level, I called my nephew, come over and get a game. I know you'll like this. And he came over, oh, thanks. He loves it. I'm delighted that I paid top dollar for it with the strategy guide, so at least he could enjoy it. It's just not my cup of tea. But I wouldn't say it's a bad game. It's just not my thing. That game was overhyped, and that's why perhaps Aliens Colonial Marines didn't do so well, because they're putting everything into Borderlands 2, and instead of allocating their resources to finish a game that a lot of people really wanted to play. But that's another matter, and they're actually in court right now battling it out. I don't know with Sega or who, over whether there's a misappropriation of funds in the making of that or whatever. I don't know, but it's sad. There's so many great games that have virtually no hype that are great, and then you get games that have all the hype in the world. Some of them live up to it, and some people have played this and go, yeah, the story was okay, I just lost interest and never finished, and that's fine. I am the first person that can understand what that's like. Sometimes just you can be overhyped for something. So let me know in the comments how you feel about things. Do you feel that games are have too much hype? Are you indifferent to it? Some people I know, they don't watch game reviews. They don't want to see anything. They want to play the game for themselves and experience for themselves, and they will judge for themselves. I'm not one of those people. I can't wait. Like a car wreck you can't look away from. I can't wait to see the next preview. I love E3. I love to see what's coming. This new Division by Tom Clancy looks fantastic. It looks like right up my alley, the perfect type of story and setting and gameplay I like, but sadly it's multiplayer. And it's heavy server-based game, so I'll pass on it. The Crew and Drive Club, another heavy server-based games, a new Crackdown remake, reboot, heavy server-based, cloud-based games. I'll probably pass on all of those, which is sad. I would love to see more of a focus on a single player. This new Destiny game looks stunning, looks beautiful. So many friends of mine are pumped about it. I am indifferent to it. I just don't like the same thing with a little XP pouring out of every hit. All the enemies look exactly the same. It looks just like a copy of Halo with gorgeous graphics. If it's something that you enjoy and you like it and you want to buy into the hype for that, or Watch Dogs or Aliens Colonial Marines or whatever, I understand. That's fine. It's up to each person to decide what they're willing to buy into. Sometimes the games live up to the hype, sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's an anti-hype of people that will troll in the comments, oh, this game is shit, it's way overrated, it's become the hip thing. The hipsters will tend to put down Bioshock Infinite. Oh, the story was too convoluted, it's too this, too that, and it makes them cool. They feel 4 inches higher if they can stand on someone's neck and put something down or whatever. So, and put a wet blanket. It's like going into a kid's party and taking a pin and popping all the kids' balloons. I mean, it's just it's absurd. But this is the world that we live in with the internet. Everyone likes to throw a negative blanket over someone else. I see a lot of this on Twitter. Every time someone's excited and posts I can't wait for this new game. Oh yeah, I'll wait till it hits $20, and even then I'll think twice about it. I'm like, well, whatever, fine. You're just showing that you're indifferent, that you just don't care, that nothing impresses you. I feel sorry for those people. I honestly do. And I have relatives very close to me that are identical to that. And I've had a belly full of that for over half a century. I love gaming. I'm not the greatest gamer. I don't have the highest gamer score. I certainly can't follow through and play every single game through to completion. But does it make me any less of a gamer? Does it make me any less passionate about something that takes me away from the burdens and hard work and worries of the world? Of course not. I love gaming, whether I play 1 or 2 levels of something or I see it all the way through and replay it. I share my enthusiasm for my games. Some of them are AAA games, some of them are terrible games that really a lot of people have passed on because of the jaded reviews or negativity towards them. But like Mark Bussler at Classic Game Room and a few other people and friends of mine that I know, I look for the fun in games. I show the games in the best light, excuse me, as I have fun with them, and I try to show why I like them and why they meant something to me. If you kind of like my rationale and I like what Dean says about it. He looks like he has fun. I can see how he likes that game for the reasons. I don't agree with him with everything, but I think I'll give it a chance. I mean, go ahead and try the game. I try to show the negative things as I see them, but again, I'm focusing on the fun of the games. I believe the games are engineered to be fun. No game is designed to be a shitty game. It happens, sadly. And I don't have any qualms with I won't buy, pre-order any new EA games. EA doesn't deserve it. I'm not one of these anti-corporate types that refuse to buy. No, I'll, pirate the game instead, or I'll wait till it's $10 tops, or I won't buy it. Again, I mean, people overreact with that kind of stuff. If you can't afford the game, that's fine. Then wait a year and a half. You'll get the game dirt cheap. There's times I have to. I have no choice. I have to wait too. I want to get that Thief game in the strategy guide that came out last February 2014. It looks really good to me personally. But, I don't know if I can afford it. It's still $40-50 right now, brand new. I may have to wait a while. I got to pick and choose myself. I can only get a handful of games this year. So probably the end of the year, maybe next year in 2015, when I'm waiting for Mad Max and the other games come out, I'll see some of those games which will be at the $20 range or $29.99 or whatever, and I'll pick them up then. I'll have a great time with them then. Good games are timeless. That's one thing I've learned. So anyway, that's my rant on the hype of games, or the hype monster that we all buy into. Let me know what your opinions are about it, how your feelings are, your criteria for buying games, passing on games, whether you watch reviews, whether you steer clear of them, how you feel about everything I've said. I'd love to hear the comments. Thanks, guys, and enjoy your games, no matter what they are.